Andy here, and we are aggressively running out of sunlight, so let's get this video done. Today I wanted to rank books that I have gotten from my from my Dollar Tree and 99-cent store. So I'm going to talk about them in order of reading them, and then afterwards I'm going to rank them from my, favorite to least favorite, or what have you. So this was the first book I read. And most of these are from the Dollar Tree. This one is from the 99-cent store, and oh my gosh, you don't even know. You don't even know what happened. You're not even gonna believe this. This is so bad. Okay, so this is the first book that I read. It's called The Perfect Liar. This is by Thomas Christopher Green, and this was from the 99-cent store. So I paid probably around 99 cents for it. So this is about a family. The husband and wife get to know each other later on in life. The wife was previously married and has a kid of her own, but they all live together and they seem to be happy. Everything seems to be normal until you start diving into the backgrounds of each of the people before they had met each other. From stealing identities to murder, there's just a lot of secrets between the two. There's this one line that I loved. It says, "Parts of her were harder than diamonds and other parts shattered like glass." That's a beautiful line. It was very well written. It was engaging. I really liked the story. And then let me show you what happened. So I'm just reading at like 2 o'clock in the morning, just reading, oh, this is so good. Can't wait to read some more. And then this happened. And I cannot tell you how much I raged at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was so upset about this book. I was so upset. Yeah, so that happened. I was unable to finish the book, obviously, because there are like 20 pages missing in here. And it goes from page 188 to 219. So I did go back to the 99-cent store to try to see if I could find the same book there. They were gone. I would recommend to skip out on 99-cent store books. It's dangerous. It's a dangerous game for us readers. So if you do get a book from the 99-cent store, maybe scroll through it. One of the pages is kind of off kilter a little bit. It's a little funky. So I think that if I would have skimmed through it, I probably would have known, just do one of these before you buy any from there. So 99-cent store, do not recommend. Very upset about this. Never finished the book. It was probably a great book. It started off great, the first 180 whatever page, like I got pretty close to the end. Oh, I cannot tell you how much this sends me into a fit of rage. Oh, the next book that I read was called The Sandman, and this is a novel by Lars Kepler. And Lars Kepler is actually not the name of a person. It's actually a husband and a wife who write, and they are from, I think it's Sweden. They live in Sweden. So this is their, pseudonym for writing. And this book was originally $16.49, it says here. I got this for $1 from my Dollar Tree. So the rest of these were from the Dollar Tree. So this is about Ulrich. He's a man who is a serial killer, and he was found forcing a woman back into a coffin where she had been kept for years, and kind of like chained in this coffin, and he would just open it up and feed her to keep her alive. Very twisted, very messed up. There seems to be some paranormal elements to this story where you don't quite know. It's one of those like, is this paranormal? Is this not? There's some elements of like superstition where Ulrich being found doing this is put in a mental institution, and the people that work there will wear earplugs so he can't whisper in your ear and drive you mad. And so there are a little bit of superstitious elements like that in it. Things like that. Things where you're just like, is this supernatural or not? The reader doesn't really know. And one thing, like probably my only issue with this book, is that look at these chapter lengths. They're all like a page long. All of them. This really irritated me. It really took me out of the story. It's honestly, in the middle of a scene the chapters would stop and I would be like, why? And then it would just pick up on the next page, and for me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. It just kept pulling me out of the narrative, but I still did really enjoy the story. I thought it was extremely well written, and it really held my attention. So anyways, we find that this Ulrich man actually is the identity that this killer has stolen. So we don't even know who he is. We don't know where he comes from. We know nothing about him other than he is a serial killer and he's in this place. Now, we know that there are 2 children that are missing, and because this woman was found alive, we're like, Does he know? Can he help find these two children? And so they end up sending in a woman to the insane asylum to be a patient to kind of befriend Yurik and try to figure out where these kids are. That goes horribly wrong. There's also another detective named Juna, and he's the one that arrested Yurik, and he's involved in the story too. I mean, it is like a very well written story where there's a bunch of pieces that tie in together. So, fantastic ending. I really like the ending. It was such a good book, and honestly, fast-paced, keeps you entertained, keeps you guessing throughout. You don't know whether it's one of those supernatural stories or not until you're closer to the end, and then all is kind of revealed. It's the 4th book in the series, which I didn't know until I finished the entire series, and I was not confused at all. Like, this book is its own entity within itself, and that is really hard to do. So these writers they're fantastic. So I really enjoyed that, and I liked that I could just pick up a book in the middle of the series, read it, know exactly what's going on, not be confused with anything. But then I can also go back or go forward and read more of these books if I'm ever able to find them, which I think is just awesome. But I mean, to be honest, 450 pages of entertainment for $1, you can't beat that. Honestly, I would highly recommend going to your local dollar store. Dollar Tree is the one that I found this at, because they have some fantastic books, and this one really blew me away. Like, I was really excited to read this. Not to mention, you know, you get introduced to other writers that aren't just from America, so I think that's fantastic as well. The next one that I read was called Diary of a Stalker, and this one was by Electra Rome Parks. Now, this one is about a one-night stand that turns out badly, and I know what you're thinking, oh, I've read that story before, I've seen that movie before. No, you haven't. Let me explain. So the writer, the main guy in here is a writer. He meets this obsessive fan, and they begin like a relationship behind his fiance's back. The dialogue I wrote here is a bit unnatural, but again, I've read this so long ago that I didn't write anything else on it, so I don't really know what was unnatural. I can't expand on that. I apologize. The chapters are the characters speaking and explaining their lives, and while I was reading this, I was thinking, like, who are they explaining this to? Because I thought it would be cool at the end if this wrapped up in like a courtroom, for example, and like everything that you had read so far had been their testimony. I thought that would have been nice, but I might also just be thinking too much into it. That was just my thought. It didn't happen. But I enjoyed hearing the back and forth and the different perspectives of the same events. I really love when books do this, and I love when people are unreliable. It just really spices up the story for me. I mean, I really like the idea that you can walk into a Dollar Tree, pick up a book that you've never heard of a writer you've never heard of, read it, and then become a fan of that writer. It's just such a cool way to be introduced to new stories, and a cheap way at that, and like cheap entertainment. If you enjoy books and you're a reader, I don't think that there's any reason to not go to a Dollar Tree and see if you can find something there. I have seen a few of you say that your Dollar Trees don't carry books or don't carry a wide selection of books, so I'm not really sure why mine just always has books. Hopefully some of you can look and find something good there. Here's the thing. I'm reading this book and I'm like, where's the horror coming in? Where is this? And then it dawned on me, oh, this isn't a horror book. This is an erotic novel. So I have officially read my first erotic novel / thriller, and I gotta tell you, not really for me. I'm not an erotic novel kind of lady. It made me a little uncomfortable. So yes, definitely more on the erotic thriller side. The thing with these kind of stories is usually there's a good guy who makes a mistake once or didn't even cheat on his significant other. And then there's a crazy stalker lady. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. Fatal Attraction, that movie with Beyonce, Obsession, Obsessed, whatever it's called. Those stories have been told before. However, in this book, I hated both the characters. I hated them both. And at first I thought that was going to be a problem, because I'm like, how am I supposed to read a story but not care about either of them? But I gotta be honest, it was nice to just kind of like sit back, eat some popcorn, and just like see what you crazy kids are going to get into, because both of you are freaking nuts. But it definitely wasn't one of those like, this guy is good, you should feel sorry for him even though he's made a mistake. And this girl is definitely crazy, even though he's the one that's been messing with her emotions. It wasn't like that. So I don't think that it's a story that you can read and you're like, oh, I've read this before. It was really interesting from the beginning. Like, this guy cheats on his fiance with this fan of his writing, and then he keeps going back to her no matter how crazy she's being and how much she oversteps the boundaries. She even moves to his town and comes up with an excuse and he believes her. He's suspicious, but he still goes back to her. It's really interesting. And then the stalking really ramps up at the end. I wrote that you don't know her past, but you see her thought process and how she really feels about certain things. And this makes her more of a person than just that crazy lady who stalks this attractive, handsome, successful man. I don't know. I really enjoyed how they took that like traditional stalker story and just turned it on its head. So all in all, I would say this novel is not for me, but if you're into erotica, then yeah, pick it up. The next one that I read is Here Are the Monsters. This is by Amalinda Biru. I know I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. I'm sorry, I'm a moron. So this one is actually a YA novel. And at first reading it, I was like, why is this a YA novel? Because the first half of the book is very creepy and fun. I equated it to Paul Tremblay probably a little too early on in the reading, because I thought it was one of those novels where you don't quite know what happens until or ever, you know, it's kind of left for the reader's interpretation, and that's not at all what it is. There is a point in this book where you do cross that road of finding out what it is. So basically, there's these two girls, there's Sky and Deidre. Deidre is the younger sister and Sky is the older sister. And basically they just moved to a new town, and where the girls were previously kind of outcasts in their city, now Sky has a friend group and she's like kind of popular, and she is learning what it's like to like have crushes on boys and have friends and things like that. And so her and Deidre's relationship is being kind of strained. Deidre doesn't want her to have friends. She kind of wants her all to herself, but obviously Sky is growing up. It's inevitable. And Deidre is definitely turning towards the woods for solace, and she starts making these creepy creatures out of sticks and shirts and stuff, and like bringing bones in the house that she found outside, and being very creepy and aggressive to Sky's friends. And so the divide grows even further. Well, one day Deidre, who spends most of her times out in the woods, who comes in late at night just filthy from playing out in the dirt, goes missing. And so they think that she has gone into the woods and is missing. And this is where I wasn't sure what was happening, because it kind of seems like Deidre may have just been messing with them, you know, like to make her older sister want to go find her. And I won't give too much away, but what ends up happening is that these creatures in the woods that Deidre made come to life and like lure Sky and taunt her and tell them like, we have your sister, you have to do XYZ before you can see her again. And so Sky kind of goes on this quest to get her sister back. It really is a story of a sisterly relationship and kind of how far you would go for your sibling, regardless of how strange your relationship is. And in that way, it is a pretty beautiful novel. And I gotta say, if I would have read this as a teen, I would have loved this. I think this book really would have blown my mind. It's a fantastic YA novel. It's just personally not my type of book. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that magic element, like creatures coming alive in the woods. It's just not for me. But if that does sound like something that you're interested in and you do like YA novels, I would highly suggest this. It is so beautifully written. I mean, honestly, this writer really blew me away. I really wish that she wrote adult fiction, but it is creepy, and especially in the beginning where you don't really know what's happening. But then as things unfold, for me it just becomes less creepy because it's less of a story that I would personally enjoy. But for $1, for like, you know, again, 400 pages of entertainment, I would highly recommend, if you find this at your Dollar Tree, to give it a try, and if you like YA novels. So now really quickly, those are the books that we read. I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. So least favorite, The Perfect Liar, and to be honest, it's not because this book is bad. This is one of the best books that I read, honestly, way more up my alley than some of these other books are. But you know, the 99-cent store did me dirty. I couldn't finish it. So that's a tragic story of how I will never know what happens at the end of this book. My second least would probably have to be Diary of a Stalker. Some of the writing was a little bit more stilted. It didn't flow as naturally as some of the other stories did. And also just wasn't my type of story. Definitely very leaning towards the erotic side of things. Not what I would typically read, but I am glad that I read it. Then next, I would say Here Are the Monsters. This one is probably, I would say, the most well written, in the sense of if you like beautiful flowery description and language and things like that, which I personally do. So I really, really, really loved the writing style of this book. again, just the content, it just isn't a book for me. And that's, I mean, that doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means it wasn't a book for me, but still really enjoyed reading it. And then I think my favorite was actually The Sandman, because this one had a little bit of everything. There was action and adventure and thriller and horror and serial killers and cops, and it kind of had it all. I definitely will be going back to my to my Dollar Tree and trying to see if I can find more Lars Kepler books. I really enjoyed this one, and so I hope that I can find more by the same author. So that is my ranking of the 99-cent store / Dollar Tree books that I've read so far. I still have a whole other bunch of them, so if you guys like this video, I would love to do a second one for you. Let me know which one sounded the most interesting to you, and how enraged would you be if you got to the middle of a book and like 20 pages were missing. Anyways, let me know what books have surprised you recently, and I will see you next time with another horror video. Bye, guys.